1978 was the last album that I recorded with Jack. But at that time, his life was, wasn't going too well. He was going through a divorce, and he also got dropped by the record company. When we did
Right.
the record, he delivered it, and they didn't release it, and they dropped him. So that was kind of the end of the Jack Bruce band, really. Um, I was doing, various other things, and then I got a call from Max Middleton
Mm.
saying, "Would you like to come out and have a play with Jeff? He's looking for a new band." I said, "Absolutely." So he also called John Giblin, and so we drove out to I drove out to where Jeff lived, down in Sussex, and we all met him, and I think I brought a little kit with me, and we set up, and we just started playing.
Mm.
Max, John, myself, and Jeff. And I got on great with Jeff, and but John didn't quite hit it off with him. So I was asked back, and John wasn't. And then all of a sudden, uh, Jeff was eager to get into the studio. Jan Hammer had some spare time, so he flew over, and they called me to record. Um, what was interesting because I was doing a lot of sessions at
Yeah,
that
yeah,
time.
yeah.
I knew all the studios and all the engineers and stuff. And they asked me, the manager said, "Well, look, where do you recommend and who do you recommend to engineer?" And I said, because I think they were just looking for some new ideas. I said, "Well, I would go to, I think the best studio is rock and roll studios Ramport, which is Pete Townsend's studio, because it's private. It's
Yeah.
you block book it. You don't have any interference from other studios, and there's no time issue. There's not a jingle in the morning. It's yours when you walk in. Um, so I said I think that's a great studio, um, and I would get John Punter, who was an Air Studios engineer, and he was my favorite engineer at the time. So that's how we started recording. Jan
Mm.
came over. We recorded 5 or 6 tunes.
Jan was amazing, right?
Yeah, and no bass player, just
Yeah.
the three of us. Jan actually played like moog bass on a couple of things, or just Rhodes. Um, so we recorded those tracks. I was like in heaven. It was like, wow, Jan and Jeff, this is great. Um, and it went well. And luckily, I still have those recordings because I had it on my computer.
Mm.
So I do have those.
Mm.
They were well, not all of them were finished because Jeff decided he only wanted to do three of those songs. So that was the end of that. And then all of a sudden there was this call from the manager that said, "Listen, can you get down to Jeff's? Stanley Clarke's coming over. We're putting something together for Japan in November or whatever it was, October, November, October, I think it was. And yeah, Stanley would like to meet you and hear you play."
Mm.
So, because obviously what had happened, Jeff had, spoken to Stanley, and Jeff said, "Yeah, I've got this young drummer, he's great, blah, blah, blah." And Stanley said, "Yeah, well, I've got this young drummer and he's great." Do you know what I mean? It was one of those. So probably, I'm guessing now. So I drive down there and I have my whole Octopus kit. By now we've already established that. So I set it all up and I meet Stanley and I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is Stanley." you know. And it was quite amazing because before we started playing, he had this stool, quite a high stool, and he put it right next to the drum kit with his kind of back facing me, but to the side. So it immediately was drums and bass, the
Mm.
rhythm section. And he'd never even heard me play, but he was already establishing that kind of rapport. And I thought that was really cool. And he said, "Right, Jeff, what do you want to play?" Well, let's play School Days. And Stanley goes, "You know School Days?" I said, "Yep, I know School Days." And and off we go. We play. I can't remember if that really was the first song, but it seemed like it would have been because Stanley would have had to have learnt the other
Yeah.
tunes of, you know. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. So anyway, we played it, and right at the end of it, he turns around, he puts his big hand on my 10-inch tom and goes, I like the way you tune your drums. He could have said, but by the way, you sound awful. But he didn't, thankfully. Or he could have said, you sound great. But no, I like the way you tune your drums. That was it. And the rest of the day was just like, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And we finished and he went back to LA. You know, said, really nice to meet you. And we got on straight away.
Mm.
Um, and so that was 78. There was a keyboard player issue. And we had two keyboard players, one to play Jeff's tunes, Max Middleton, one to play Stanley's tunes, Mike Garson. It just did not work.
Yeah.
And we were in production rehearsals at the Rainbow Theatre with not much time to go. And I walk into a dressing room where we had, and both Jeff and Ernest are talking. And I couldn't help but overhear, where are we going to get a fucking keyboard player now? Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, and I kind of went, excuse me. And they kind of turned around, yeah, I know a keyboard player who will nail this. Really? Absolutely. So, but how's he going to learn this? Trust me, you'll love him. And he said, well, can you call him? I said, yep. I picked up the phone right there, and it was, you know, and I called Tony, and he picked up the phone. Yeah. I said, hey, Tony, Simon. He said, oh, hello, how are you doing? I said, yeah, cool. Hey, fancy coming to Japan? When? And who with? I said, well, there's a small band that I put together, Jeff Beck, Stanley Clarke, myself, and you. And he went, let me look at the diary. And he, this is so Tony, right? Yeah, I've got a classical concert performance at the Yardbury or whatever it is, Queen Elizabeth Hall on the 17th, and I've got a jazz gig with Cleo Lane on the 14th. I said, Tony, what are you thinking? And he said, oh, all right then. It was lovely. So Stanley had to fly back again from LA to just play with Tony and me.
Wow.
And loved him instantly. Tony had got all the songs down. Jeff was like, "Oh man, this we, you know," and that was it. And Tony became, you know, Jeff's kind of main songwriter for
Yeah.
many years. You know,
Interesting.
so
Wow. Quite a coincidence.
yeah. But then, so anyway, blah blah blah. Going up to there and back. What I realized was Jeff needs music. That's what he does, and I think Tony and I would be well placed to write some. So I said to Tony, we need to get together and write songs. And we did. That's exactly what we did. And then we go down to Jeff's, give him a cassette, and go
Mm.
take a listen to this. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I like this." And you know, we did a demo. I still have the demo as well. Yeah. Anyway, that's a long story. I still have the demo of it, and it's you know, he puts it in the cassette machine. He listens. Oh, this is great. You know, and that's how we came up with There and Back.
Wow. So beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a nice album. I mean, it's just the tunes, everything. I love that
Yeah.
band. It
Well,
was like,
it was, you see, that's what how I envisaged jazz rock to go.
yeah,
More on the rock side. That's why I call it instrumental rock. It's instrumental. It should be more harmonically involved. You know, this is not, I mean, what Joe Satriani does, I mean, Satch, brilliant. It's lovely, but his is much more mainstream.
yeah. It's very bluesy rock. Yeah,
Yeah, and very
pentatonic. Yeah,
solid, consistent grooves, you know.
yeah,
Whereas this is much more, you know, because Jeff loved harmony. He loved jazz chords.
yeah.
So that was to me the perfect mixture of rock sensibility with jazz harmony.
Mm.
And I think that's why Tony and I had a great, we were, you know, really great writing team. I mean, you know, he did most of the heavy lifting, you know, with all the chords and stuff. I
Harmonic.
mean,
Yeah.
what am I going to do, you know? But I kind of came up with the concept, a lot of the melodies, and the kind of the form, the approach, you know. We were jamming, we were playing a shuffle, and I started playing in seven across the four. And then Jeff joined me. He said, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah,
Right? I said to Tony, "That's our next tune." And that's where Space Boogie came.
Boogie. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's great. Yeah, and
amazing.
so I carried that on really into my solo stuff.
Yeah,
My
that's why I wanted to ask you because it has that same feel. I mean,
it's strong
more
melody,
complex, but
guitar-based melody, guitar-based melody, but a little more jazzy, a little more advanced, stuff, a little bit more complex. You know, just
yeah,
more fun, really. You know.
yeah.